Is it peace or just a ceasefire? With the path forward unclear, unmet demands for accountability and ever-expanding land grabs remain key obstacles. As thousands of Gazans return to what's left of their homes, will the reality of an annihilated territory lead to peaceful reconstruction or spiral again into violence? I'm Andrea Sankey, and this is the Newsmakers. While Hamas claims a victory of resistance, Israel claims total victory over Hamas. The release of hostages and prisoners has both sides cheering progress, but managing expectations may prove key to moving the process forward. With President Trump speaking side by side with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, it is clear Palestinians will be underrepresented as negotiators decide how to execute the next steps. But then again, some argue after hitting the lows of genocide in Gaza, things can truly only get better. Here's a look.
As Palestinians return home to utter destruction, Israel welcomes the freed hostages. Thousands gathered in Tel Aviv to watch the release of all 20 living captives. While the crowd celebrated with tears and joy, US President Donald Trump arrived in Israel. He was greeted with rapturous applause in the Knesset.
Now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed.
But in Gaza, the struggle is far from over. Since last week's ceasefire announcement, thousands have headed to the north, and they've seen their homes, livelihoods, and memories wiped away.
What is left in Gaza? There is nothing left in it except for its dead people. We are dead, a soul without a body. We are the dead, deprived of food, deprived of nutrition, deprived of water, deprived of air, of living.
In the middle of this catastrophe, Palestinians have found little joy with the release of prisoners from Israeli captivity. As part of the ceasefire deal, Israel will free 1,700 Palestinians detained in Gaza and about 250 others serving life sentences. Later on Monday, over 20 leaders gather in Egypt's Sharm el Sheikh to discuss the next steps. The summit, led by Trump and Egypt's Abdel Fattah el Sisi, has a lot of pressing issues on the table, including Israel's withdrawal, the disarmament of Hamas, future governance of Gaza, and reconstruction. President Trump says the rebuilding efforts will begin immediately, yet there are still no details. More aid trucks are entering Gaza to help the vulnerable and starving population, but Palestinians are imploring for a lasting solution.
The war of Israel on Gaza is over now. Today, we are going into another war, which is surviving. The struggle to survive is what many of us will go through here in Gaza. Everyone is trying to find a house and supply the needs of their families and children.
After 2 years of Israel's genocidal war, Palestinians are struggling to come to terms with the horror, and they're demanding accountability. But with President Trump standing side by side with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, many fear for the future of Palestinians. Will this pave the way for peace, or will Palestinian persecution continue?
Well, joining me now to look further at the ceasefire are from Washington, author of The Words of My Father, Love and Pain in Palestine, and humanitarian policy advisor, Youssef Bashir. From London, historian, activist, and professor at SOAS University, Chaim Reshith. And also from the U.S. Capitol, Republican strategist and lawyer, Amanda Mackey. Thank you all so much for being with me. Youssef, let me start with you because we need to start with Gaza here and what is really the juxtaposition of this celebration as prisoners return home, but also where Hamas has just handed back most of the leverage it had and now is fighting these local armed groups or local clans, from what we're hearing. How concerned are you now about Gaza's unity, its rebuilding, and potentially more combatants really coming out of the woodwork to destabilize the process going forward?
Well, first of all, after 2 years with my mother and brother in Gaza, holding on with their lives and their house and their land with limited supplies, food, and virtually zero safety and security, I can't help but rejoice and celebrate this sense of respite and reprieve, which I know my brother and mother and everyone else in Gaza are doing the same. The concerns stem for the unanswered questions and the plan that is put forward by President Trump, because it does not answer I think, the biggest question of all, and that is who is going to be responsible for governing Gaza, regardless if it's tomorrow or 5 years from now. The sooner this question is answered, the better. Because it's the old new challenge in Gaza always is to how to turn calm into abiding process, not just a temporary pause. Once we take advantage of this calm that we have seen, it looks pretty serious. I think the upcoming summit in Egypt is the most and first structured diplomatic process I've seen, quite frankly, since the beginning of this war. So I'm hopeful that this will grow into something tangible, serious, that will allow safety and security for the people in Gaza in the war, and move to the next stage, and that is final solution, hopefully.
I want to speak further about that process in Egypt in just a second. But for you personally right now, you said, the sooner it's answered, the better as to what will govern Gaza. What would you like to see? Earlier, we spoke a lot about Marwan Barghouti. It's not even clear if he's going to be released. But do you have some kind of leadership in mind?
That is a question for the people of Gaza. I think the people of Gaza are people who are pragmatic. They are focused on survival. We have the PA, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Hamas is in Gaza. Hamas has already indicated its interest in leaving the responsibilities of governing Gaza. I think the people in Gaza are very smart, very educated, and very intelligent, and understand what works best for them. If it's the PA, then it's the PA. If it's something else, it's something else. But just as long as those voices on the ground in Gaza and beyond are involved and a part of the process. And so far, quite frankly, the only people who are referencing the people of Gaza and the people of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the future Palestinian state, is Hamas. Hamas leaves the responsibility to answer these big questions to the population, unlike most people who are involved in this process.
But you would rather not identify a person or a body in particular as per your own personal preference. I know you're not on the ground in Gaza, but your family is.
I think my family and everybody in Gaza is going to be looking for people who enjoy credibility, legitimacy, experience, because whoever delivers on social services first, good, fast, effectively, is going to play a big role in the post-order in Gaza.
Okay. Chaim, I would love to know if anyone has anyone concrete in mind. But as per a question for you, I'd like to move on with what we heard today from both Netanyahu and Trump, because listening to Netanyahu speak before the Knesset upon the release of the Israeli prisoners or hostages, he said that Israeli expansion really is mostly, according to Israel, it's going to move forward now, and he thanked President Trump for that, acknowledging Jewish sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and for President Trump for recognizing what he said were Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria, which is the West Bank, which Trump has said Israel absolutely will not annex. So where is this agreement going as per actual Palestinian territory? Because that is key to maintaining any sense of peace.
First, I want to say that my heart goes to all Palestinians in Gaza and to Joseph and his family who suffered for 2 terrible years. I am less optimistic than Yusuf, actually. I feel that this is not an agreement with peace in mind, with long-term in mind, with justice in mind, and definitely not with the Palestinians and their true representatives in mind. Hamas has run Gaza for many, many years with real commitment. It ran all aspects of life in Gaza, and it's the only organization there that can do it. At the moment, the Israelis are feeding those gangs that they have actually armed to fight against Hamas. These are, Israeli forces by other name. They're, also criminals.
You're
So
talking
I
about
think,
these local clans that we've been hearing
that's true.
much about in the media
That's
at present.
true.
Yeah.
So this is continuing the war against Gaza by other means. Now, as for the Trump prognostications about Jewish sovereignty, I think this is telling us that the war will continue over Palestine for decades if Trump is anything to do with it, and if Netanyahu is anything to do with it. The whole of Palestine is now under Israeli occupation directly. Not only that, also Syria, parts of Lebanon, and a war is being prepared with Iran, as we all know. So actually, this agreement, if it is changing nothing in the long term. And I don't think that an agreement to be signed in Egypt without the real Palestinian representatives is worth anything.
Okay.
The UN has voted for recognition of a Palestinian state, and the US is doing everything to make sure that there is no Palestinian states, allowing Jewish supremacy in Palestine.
Right. We'll discuss who is supposedly representing Palestinian interests in just a moment, mainly Mahmoud Abbas, who many Palestinians do not necessarily see as a leader, especially from going forward with this. But let me turn to Amanda, because having heard Chaim's analysis there, and the fact that many are saying this is not, as President Trump has said, this is not peace in the Middle East, which he repeats. It's just a ceasefire. Do you think, Amanda, there is the danger here that President Trump is overselling maybe this success, similar, if we make a Republican comparison to how George W. Bush did after the invasion of Iraq years ago?
I think people, as usual, are underestimating President Trump and all that he is capable of doing and has done. If you look at what happened with the Abraham Accords, and you see long ago, nearly 10 years ago, he started that. And where we are today with what he has been able to do and negotiate, I think what you see in him is a fair arbiter. And for him to call out Israel when he had to, after the 14-day war with Iran, and when they attacked Iran again, he called out Bibi Netanyahu. He's called out Iran and the Gulf states. He's being a fair arbiter in order to achieve peace and stability in region. And so I think that's what's really important to focus on is the achievements that we've seen in a very short period of time. We had Presidents Clinton and Bush and Obama and the so-called foreign policy expert Joe Biden, but none of them could achieve what President Trump did. So let's have some faith and hope that this does work out, and that the eyes and ears of the United States being from Central Command in that region will help to further and solidify this peace deal.
Okay, Yusuf, does Amanda's point of view give you some confidence going forward that the right people are at the helm here, mainly President Trump?
Well, I will not speak to the fairness of Mr. and President Trump of the past. I will just leave that for another conversation. But I do think that we could benefit from some unconventional thinking here. President Trump, as I understand, has personally intervened to push really hard for this agreement and for this ceasefire, however fragile and unclear it may be. So I think any attempt by the Israeli right wing within the Israeli government or Netanyahu himself to sabotage, and I think they are already doing this, the local clans and local gangs causing harm in Gaza is one attempt. As long as that, if that goes, it's against the agreement, it's also going to go against President Trump's personal intervention and this, along with all the countries who will be attending the upcoming summit in Egypt later today.
Okay, Yusuf, let me ask you then about the negotiations in Egypt. And who really is then negotiating in Gazans' interest here? Do they want PA President Mahmoud Abbas to even appear as a representative? Do Qatar and Egypt represent Palestinian interest or really just their own interest for the wider region? And perhaps, as some suspect, business deals that might be going and special treatment that they feel they might get from the United States if they support the administration in their ultimate objectives in these negotiations in Egypt.
The Palestinians understand that when Hamas took over Gaza pre-2005, Hamas only took over institutions and buildings and systems that were already in place, put in place by the PA and for the PA. The PA, the President Abbas, it's no secret, does not enjoy credibility among the population or outside of Palestine. However, the people will if they are allowed to vote for a new system or participate in what that system might look like, I think they will make strategic and informed choices. If it's the PA, then the people will have to go with the PA. Hamas has already mentioned that they will not govern in Gaza. You're asking about Qatar and Egypt and who is representing the Palestinian interest. I think that it's nobody except for Hamas. I know that they have been in Gaza for the past 17 years. They're the only ones who reference prisoners, reference aid, reference all the things that the Palestinians are demanding and looking for, including state, final solutions, etc., etc. Everybody else is only referencing us as an afterthought, after Israel, after Egypt, after Qatar. And I think that is a recipe for disaster later on, for as long as we are pushed out of the process and the decision-making on what it comes to the future of Gaza, the West Bank, and the Palestinian state as a whole.
Right. And Chaim, I mean, I know you believe it's not even nowhere near as just simple as who appears in negotiations on behalf of the Palestinian people, because Israel, you say, behind the scenes will look to undermine in every way any Palestinian interest going forward, and therefore be able to blame the Palestinians for disrupting the process, for bringing about their own demise, per se. But let me ask you from the Israeli side, how strong now does Netanyahu appear before the Israeli people? This is, as we talked about before, this is leading up to an election, and he is fighting for his political career. The timing is perfect for him right now, to the point where he may even call early elections, we're hearing. So how is this playing out in Israel, and how will that in turn work against Palestinian interests going forward?
Well, most Israelis supported the genocide in Gaza, unfortunately. Most Israelis supported also the breaking of the different ceasefires by Israel. Israel has never kept a single ceasefire that it signed to. So I'm not really want to think that it will allow this ceasefire to continue much further. Now, more than half of the population of Israel is against Netanyahu on other issues altogether. He is facing cases in court which he hasn't attended. But also he is facing an inquiry about the October 7th, which he managed to stop as long as the war has continued. He now might have to face this again, the requirement for an official inquiry about October 7th, which he has questions to answer, which we all want to know the answer for. So I don't think he will allow this. And one of the ways he will do this is to find wars everywhere he can, either continuing the war in Gaza, which is a very strong possibility, the war against Iran, which everyone is speaking about, Syria and Lebanon, which are facing Israeli bombing all the time. And many of them are now in government talking about attacking Turkey, of all countries. So I think Netanyahu needs a war, at least one, and he will do all he can for the fighting to last. I hope that the war in Gaza is finished for now, because the suffering is unbelievable and actually without precedent. And I was very interested to hear Amanda speaking about Trump as some kind of messiah of peace, when he is the one that joined Israel in attacking Iran and continued to support the Israeli forces as long as they fought in Gaza. So I think 2 years of Trump's rule have proved where he stands, and I have no real hopes for a change in that direction. And he is going to support Netanyahu, and if Netanyahu is removed, he will support whoever is chosen by the Israelis to lead them. But a little point, but important one, the Americans have never supported any Palestinian sovereignty, and they don't now. So instead of allowing the people of Gaza to decide who actually should represent them, they decide that Qatar and Egypt or, other countries will represent the Palestinians. They never represented the Palestinians. Okay. They have not the Palestinians' interest at heart.
Let me ask Amanda, though. I mean, Amanda, I know you're not Israeli, but I know you also do believe fundamentally that this U.S.-Israel relationship has brought strength to Netanyahu, that he probably will win another election, because in spite of what Haim says, you believe the Israeli people do support him, and they even more so support President Trump in the role that he's played as a friend, to Israel. But I need to ask you from the perspective of the U.S., do you think the U.S. public, including even people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who many were shocked, kind of turned against Trump on this issue, do you think they will turn around now and somehow Trump will leverage off this process to give the American people, or at least help them lay off Israel and break the momentum we've been seeing?
I think it's important to see how this all plays out. We're seeing the food being distributed, trucks are coming in to the region, and that's the type of thing that Americans and people throughout the world, including Israelis, need to see. This is important. But when you talk about President Trump, as Professor Haim did, I would just say, look at every Republican president and see how they've started wars, even Democrat presidents. President Trump has not done that, and he campaigned on not starting wars. And in fact, everything that he has done has been in furtherance of peace. He mentioned it this morning. We have to now tackle Ukraine and Russia. We have to deal with Iran and try to reach peace with Iran. I was born in Iran, and when I was born was right on the cusp of when a very long war ensued between Iran and Iraq, and it devastated that country. So for me, it is a source of pride to hear a United States president say we need to have peace in that region. They have been devastated by the sanctions. And President Trump wants to bring peace to that area, and we should encourage that. We should be happy about that. One thing I will say is that in the United States, You have pro-Hamas members of Congress that have not said a word in support of what President Trump has been able to achieve. And I think those are things that are distractions. You should be in furtherance of this, and we should support what President Trump has done that no other president has been able to do.
Okay, let me give Yusuf some quick final words.
I pray for the peace and safety of the people in Gaza and the West Bank. The West Bank, we didn't talk much about the West Bank today, but the people there, Hamas is not strong there, but the people and the abuse carried out by the settlers is almost endless. And has been, and sadly, it will continue to be for the foreseeable future. I pray for peace all the time, every time, as long as the people of the Palestinian people are part of this process. Whatever is put forward must answer our interest, demands, and needs. If not, then there will be conflict. This is a war that can come to an end if the Palestinian people are involved and seriously are given the opportunity to contribute to the shaping of their own future.
Yusuf, I sincerely hope your optimism can carry into the next phases of this process. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you in the days and weeks to come to see how it is progressing. But for now, that is unfortunately all the time we have for this edition of the Newsmakers. So I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for being with us, and our viewers, of course, for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.